Thanks for joining room 2, where we will have a dialogue process going on around the topic of using dialogue as a process tool towards capacity building and women empowerment. Preparing this, I got a message saying we felt the need to give participants a feel of the Bohemian dialogue process. So I was very intrigued by that, and I'm very curious to learn more about that. But before handing it over to the group of speakers, or the panelists, or whatever you want to call it, I would like to briefly introduce you so that you know who is around the table. So first, I'd like to welcome Dr. Vanny Nair. She has over 20 years of experience in education and research. An education leader, she has initiated and implemented various innovation programs by collaborating in a variety of work environments, both in India and in the Emirates. Her areas of specializations lies in marketing, consumer research, and entrepreneurship. She has been awarded the best faculty in entrepreneurship by Higher Education Forum. Thank you for joining. Welcome. Next, I would like to briefly introduce Dr. Jim Saveland, who has a very long track record. I think I can only mention a few elements here. So Jim is a retired professional from 40 years of career in the US Air Force and the US Forest Services, where he was an ally to women pioneers entering male-dominated professions. Very interesting. Look forward to hearing more about that. He also worked to bring dialogue, meditation, and theory U, including system thinking, to improve the safety, well-being, and resilience of wildland firefighters. In retirement, he continues to teach meditation and promote dialogue. Welcome, Jim. Thank you so much for joining. Next, I would like to briefly introduce Mrs. Pooja Joshi. Pooja has 15 years of work experience in the field of HR, counseling, and product management in India and the United States of America across 6 industries. Some of our key areas of interest include individual, societal, and planetary well-being, the role of education in building a partnership-based and the role of education in building a partnership-based society. Aside from her day job and her work with ITM Business School, she finds creative expression in blogging, podcasting, and dancing. She practices daily meditation has lived intuitively so far, allowing herself to make mistakes on the way. Learning to step into her own womanhood is an everyday work in progress. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome. Finally, and special thanks to Dr. Deepthy for also making this workshop possible. I would like to briefly introduce Dr. Deepthy Raghavendra. Currently looking into learning and development at ITM Kargar campus, Deepthy sees herself as a lifelong learner in pursuit of truth. A PhD in marketing, BITS Pilani, with 20 years of experience in teaching and training, she loves facilitating and co-creating through dialogue and theory U processes. Her teaching interests include strategy, foreign policy, and leadership lab. Her passion and work are in the area of vertical literacy, integral education, Bohemian dialogue, here we go, system thinking, generative leadership, Indian philosophy, exploring the fourth way and collaborating with those working towards evolution and or raising individual and collective consciousness. Apart from that, she's a mother, a wife. She loves gives time to herself for reading, movies, Star Trek fan actually, meditation, painting, and integral studies. So with such a rich panel or lineup of speakers, I'm very pleased and very curious and eager to learn more from you. And I hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Just. It's really an honor and a privilege to have you as our moderator. I was thrilled when, like, no, there were two other options and you have been allotted this particular space. Oh, wow, Pooja is also here. So I was wondering whether she got missed out in there in the main room. Welcome, Pooja. You just missed out on what Dr. Just had introduced us out here. Yeah, we would like to thank everyone over here to come over to the space, and a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to across the globe and the time space. The reason why we have chosen this topic is, like, last 2 years, we have been exploring the dynamics of dialogue, and in fact, trying to create an ecosystem where we could or envision a holding space where people could feel comfortable, whether it is students, faculty, or anyone, in fact. So that's how we ended up choosing the space here. So usually, whenever we have these sessions, Pooja usually takes us through her prayer. That's our workplace prayer. So I would invite her to start with the prayer before we start sharing.
Hey, that's not just my prayer, it's all of our prayer.
The one who created it. So.
Okay, sure. All right, so for this prayer, all I ask of all of you is just to, just come together in time space and put our energies and intent together as you listen to these words. It's called the prayer for our workspace. And today it's this dialogue space that we're creating here. May the highest collective intelligence of the universe guide our work. May we have the humility to offer ourselves to humanity and Earth at large. May we have the strength to let go whatever doesn't serve us well. May we have the grace to receive what needs to come forth. May we experience the sense of oneness our hearts are capable of. May we be true to the highest versions of our own selves. May we be embodiments of love, kindness, compassion, and courage. May we dance in the togetherness of our space. May we revel in the boundless joy we create. May we be full and may we be empty on this journey. May we be loyal to the ultimate source and the unfolding. Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. When we usually start with the dialogue process, we have what are called as a check-in. So I'm just going to invite everyone into this holding space and would ask you if you had ever experienced a space of dialogue before, or even explored some of these experiences through any of the theories or models like Theory U. If you have, you could just put a show of hands. You could put on the in the reaction button, just a show of hands. It will help us, like, to give the time for the.
I guess there are few actually at this point, so we're very curious all.
Wonderful. Yeah. I came across this beautiful quote by Richard Rohr, in fact, yesterday when I was in another dialogue process, which said, pain not transformed is transmitted. It felt so relevant to what we are about to start. Could we share the slides, or just should I share, or?
Please share them, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it working, Deepthy? Yes, here we go.
Is it showing?
It says it started screen sharing, but not seeing the slides yet.
Yeah, it takes a bit of time, but maybe just takes a bit too much time. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
Is it showing?
Yes.
Can you please put it in the presentation mode?
Yeah. Only thing is, I don't know whether
That's the one.
the PPT flow will stop.
Should be fine.
Only thing, I won't be able to see you all. So you'll have to help me with some reactions from the other side.
Okay. Or you rather keep it a bit smaller, rather, that's fine too. I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah. But are you able to see it when it's small?
Yes. Make it a bit bigger, maybe. Make it a bit bigger. Now we have full screen. That's perfect.
This is what our session flow looks like. We are starting with the basic, the theory, if at all, since many of us are not familiar with it, we thought we will bring in the theory a little bit, not really exploring because it's decades of research for some and just one slide for us. So it feels very bad that we are doing injustice to them, but please bear with us. Then we will have a short immersion in the first part of the dialogue. And again, we come back to some of the theories that we are using here, and then we end with the dialogue. So this is going to be the process flow. Now, since it's a workshop on systems thinking, we thought nothing better to do justice than the iceberg model. So most of you already familiar with this, with the systems thinking model. So it says that around 10% of, it's only the 10% of what we see out there, like the events are visible to us and each one of us perceive it in our own ways. But the rest, 90% or something is always submerged below. And if you really start looking at it, and we will understand so much of conflict out there that's happening in every system is actually because of these. Now, most of us are hooked on to events alone, whether we are stuck to mainstream media or whatever, but we fail to explore what's behind them. So what we are going to look at is what are those underlying structures. In this particular slide, we can see that below the events come what are called as patterns. And if you look at patterns and see what is the trend, what's coming up, then you see that there are some underlying structures behind it, which are creating them. And if you start exploring or inquiring into the structures, we find certain mental models or beliefs. Now, in this particular image also has my favorite part, which is the bottommost part, which is the container. So what we are trying to create here, in fact, is the container to hold multiple perspectives. Now, if any of you are into fiction, there was this book, Second Chance by Jodi Picoult. There's a beautiful line. Eli had learned long ago that you can stare right at some things and not see what lies beneath the surface. Going a little bit further, so if you're looking at events, so some of the questions that would make the model very simpler for many of us to understand. So what's happening right now? What has been happening over time? If you are even linking it with women's issues, what are the trends? What's influencing these patterns? And what are the connection between these patterns? What values, beliefs, or assumptions shape the system? So the last part of it, the mental models, this is where the dialogue actually comes in. So we're going to try to explore the space together. Again, a bit of a theory, please bear with us. These are just models in trying to understand the world. Not only do they shape what we think, but also They shape the connections and opportunities that we are seeing. So whatever constructs we are having, actually, they dictate the decisions that we take, the actions that we engage or don't engage in. In fact, all the choices that we make. So when we are entering the process of dialogue, we'll be looking at the discipline of the mental models themselves. So there are three major parts to it. One is we'll be taking the time to reflect individually, then go into inquiry, and then clarifying our own space of our perspectives through advocacy. To quote David Baum, because we are using the Baumian dialogue out here, real dialogue is where two or more people become willing to suspend their certainty in each other's presence. Again, many of you must have seen this in some way or the other. And that's what's happening, whether it's in our own homes, whether it's in our organizations, or whether it's out there in the society. I would invite Pooja to take over, because we are going to take, like, no, each one of us are going to come in and out. Pooja?
Sure. Thanks, Deepthy. If you've followed the flow so far with systems thinking, we went from mental models and then taking away that certainty aspect of it. In dialogue, what we aspire to co-create is we understand that we co-create a space like the one that we're in also right now. So all of us, including the ones who are not talking, we are with just our being creating this space in which all of us will participate. And some of the principles around that are empathic listening, surfacing your assumptions, which is deeply connected with that earlier slide that we just had around the mental models, and just suspending that certainty of how we see the world. Agree that our purpose in coming together in any space is always to learn something, to be open for something that is emerging, creating again that space within ourselves through that suspension, balancing advocacy and inquiry, something that you're passionate about, plus something that we also need to reflect on. So finding that balance between those two, what we give voice and what we reflect on. Use the appropriate communication skills. Be respectful goes without saying. Having a little love, compassion in that, kindness in that conversation. Surface what is hidden, being open to that. And that is probably one of the hardest things that we all experience, as to what bubbles up inside us. And being willing to do that in a group space. Focusing on the relationship. And again, with systems thinking, we understand that nothing is ever isolated. It is all connected. And all of us are in relationship with each other, with Earth, with every little creature on Earth, and with the entire cosmos. So wherever you want to focus on, that aspect of relationship is what builds that space of dialogue and the circle. Staying through the hard places. A lot of us, through different experiences in life, I think we do understand that aspect. And staying with what bubbles up inside us is probably one of the hardest things, again, that we have to do. And being willing to be changed by the experience. Hopefully we will experience some of that by the end of this. We can go to the next. Deepthy, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah, I think it sometimes gets just
Rose. Okay.
frozen. It happens with when you Oh,
Maybe
please bear with
here we
me.
go.
Yeah. That helps with us building our silence together. It gives that moments of pause. Yeah. What dialogue is not? I think my introduction into this space, this has been one of my favorite pieces of content in understanding what dialogue is not. So then we get to understand, possibly through the understanding of the opposite, what it could be. So it's not a discussion where you're expected to stick to a predetermined agenda. It's not a place where we all have to agree or make some kind of a decision at the end. It's definitely not a debate. That's a completely different sense of presence when you have debate. It's not a competition. It's not to win any kind of argument. It's not for us to take any sides, hopefully, although that may occur at different times, and then that would be for us to reflect upon too. And it's not a casual chat, which is just done again at the surface level, where you make small talk to be polite. And it's also not a place where we try to play nice with each other. Now, it's a whole lot of knots here. So in a simple way, it's just bringing yourself wholly as much as possible, being willing to suspend and create that space with love and compassion, with kindness, a non-judgmental space for all of us to be in. Do you want me to do this too, Deepthy?
Yeah.
Okay. Phases of conversation. So this is also something that we tend to experience in a space of dialogue. My entry into this is relatively new myself, so probably a year or year and a half. And we've seen this occur through different workshops that we've done. It's these exact different phases would be, I would start with the downloading. That's an easier place to start, where at the bottom left, you're seeing downloading. Downloading is nothing but we're going back to what it is not. It's we tend to do a polite sharing just to break the ice sometimes. And that is a phase of the conversation, which is also important to break the ice. We can then get into a phase which is around debate and advocacy, because again, we're used to that. That's something we're habitual of doing when we get in a group space. All of us are taught to have our opinions and then fight for it. So that could be a phase where you come and advocate for something. The upward, on the up right-hand corner is balance of advocacy and inquiry. Just being present to what is being said. And this is what I'm seeing, what am I not seeing? Asking yourself that question, being a little more open to the experience. And then to the left top side, you're seeing dialogue, what picture is actually emerging. So these are the different phases that are a part of this conversation. This is also now a different way of tying all of these pieces together is, of course, we have to start with understanding. And none of this is none of this is necessarily a linear process. So being open to that too. Different people, all of us will start at different points. And listening, suspending, respecting all, being able to then speak your own truths, your voice. The title of the slide is building capacity for presencing. And I think we use that. We experience that through different experiences in our life, presencing, being present, being fully in your being. And that to build that capacity, we need to hopefully go through some of this or all of this and carry all of these capacities within us to inquire, to advocate, to listen, suspend, all of those. This is a further drill down into also probably a different way of helping us understand what listening looks like. Because a lot of times when we are also listening, we're not really listening. We all of us know that because we're all guilty of that. And what are the different phases, levels of listening? And this comes from theory U. The first level is downloading, where we just listen from habit, where we're just listening to respond or reconfirm what we already know. The second level is where we actually experience an open mind, when we are actually at least open to listening to what is disconfirming what we think about and listening for facts to disconfirm something we know. The third level is with the open heart, when we're able to listen with open heart. And I think many of us have that experience too, when we sit down with our friends or with a lover or just with a stranger and just have a, whatever we call as an open-hearted conversation. So being open to listening from within, with an open heart, seeing through the eyes of another. And the fourth is generative listening, where we listen from the field, being again open to what is emerging in that moment and being true in that moment to what's coming up from the field, with that open will being a crucial foundation for that. Holding space for something new to be born.
So I'm going to take the risk of making the slides bigger so if it stops, because we are actually immersing ourselves in dialogue for the next 15 minutes.
Okay. Sorry, Deepthy, were you saying something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. What we're going to do now is use this image that's right in front of you. There are several images there. Just look into it, feel into it, sense into it, and give yourself a minute to just absorb what's there.
Should I go into the questions, Pooja?
Mm-hmm. Now in the chat, just whatever came up for you, you can use these prompts and mention in the chat, I see, I sense, I feel, whatever it is for you. I see a lot of pain. I feel fear. I see inequality, injustice. I see so much effort. I feel frustration. I see advocacy for child education rights. I see inequality. I see confusion. I see what women go through. I see great visuals for ordinarily invisible things. I see tightness in my heart, sense tightness in my heart. I sense collective experience. I sense bad to be a man. I feel a sense of injustice for women, macho society. Okay, we'll probably just take 10 seconds if anyone else wishes to add in here. If not, then I feel burdened. Okay. I sense a need to move to creating. I feel empathetic, feel violence. Okay. Feel very uncomfortable. I feel scared for the people in the photos. I feel compassion, sorrow, need to help. I see the holders of the world. I feel uncertain. Humanity. I see the issues faced by the women and children in our society. Disparity. Shall we move to the questions, Deepthy?
Yeah.
Okay. Possibilities and problems. And thank you. What we're going to do now is the question in front of you. If you have a piece of paper to be able to journal, or maybe on your phone, you can just pull up some app, but just try to write down for a minute, what does empowerment mean to you?
Pooja, we could use the chat as well as like if 2 or 3 of us are interested,
Sure.
like you could raise your hands as well.
Anthony?
Yes, to me, in empowerment, I look at it as when people have control over their own lives.
Anyone who has put it in the chat, if you would like to talk about it too, speak to it, please feel free to do so.
I think that empowerment, what it means to me, it means facing challenges. It means having the courage to not give up, because sometimes it can be very difficult to actually stand for what we believe and our opinions. Sometimes it's much easier to just, like what was mentioned earlier, to just like not disclose things, keep quiet, keep silence, and not say things and go with the way things go. So I think empowerment takes a lot of courage to face challenges and to move forward, like around and dealing with all these problems that might appear. And what is amazing is that it's really a beautiful journey inwards into our strengths and weaknesses to build a better self for ourselves, to build our confidence. Yeah, thank you for this.
If you're happy, I wrote it in the chat, but I think there's a number of dimensions in empowerment. I think there's the environment. I mean, depending on where you live, you can express more or less what you want to do. Two, there's a matter of capacity, to have the skill set, both hard and soft, to have agency and to direct that agency towards what you think is the right thing to do. I think these are two elements.
Deepthy, shall we go to the next one? Oh, sorry.
There's so many things in the chat as well, like I'm just reading them out and it's so beautiful. I was in fact thinking I'm feeling empowered just sitting here in front of everyone, and like my husband told me earlier, like, okay, you don't have to cook today, we are going to order dinner. So I'm feeling free about that.
Okay, next question is, how have we collectively contributed to disempowerment, knowingly or unknowingly?
Puja, this has always been an interesting thing for me, because I always used to blame the system or something outside. Much later, it's dawning upon me, like somewhere else or the other, like individually, I'm also putting it out there. When I'm at home, the way I am, the expectations. Sometimes it seems contradictory. When I look at culture, traditions, I'm bound to certain thing. And then like when I'm talking outside, it feels like I'm wanting all those out there. Like I want to be empowered as a woman, but when I'm at home, I'm looking at a different thing. I want to, so I'm sitting with a lot of things. I don't know whether for others it's similar or like.
Yeah. And this morning, I know I was sharing with you what came up this morning was around creation stories, right? And that's also like how some of the religions or the scriptures talk about how a woman was created from a man's rib. That also plays into, I don't know how different ways, but certainly has had to have some impact. Would anyone like to talk to, speak to what you're writing in here?
When we have negative thoughts, negative actions and feeling, that goes out and disempowers others. Like
Even the
same loop.
Same loop over and over. Stay stuck repeating old patterns. Lack of compassion. That's an important word, right? By not unlearning the traditions which hinders empowerment. Yeah, that's a big one.
Basically, I think there's a lot of conditioning in and that goes many times, if we know it or not, through our education systems or the whole education system, including the Bible saying that indeed women stems from the man's rib. That's all conditioning. And it disempowers many others in the sense that they appear as like less. And that is a big problem.
And it takes a lot actually to even try to create a space even in classrooms. We have tried doing that with our students. We even took up this particular topic and gave it to students. Let's map the system, what's happening out there, and then slowly, one by one, they talk about so many things. In fact, like the boys given preference, the girls not, how they are treated at homes, and how a girl child, the only place is in the kitchen, or you get married and then again take care of your, the second family. And those were the things, today's generation, but they were also looking at, they were hopeful that things are changing. That's something that's also coming up. But like you said, the conditioning starts right from school. If anyone wants to share your own experience, that would be most welcome. Going to the next one.
The next prompts for us are getting a sense of the time space. So where have we been with this so far? where are we now? What do you see in the current? What have you seen, experienced in the past? And where are we going? So 3 simple questions. Where have we been? Where are we now? And where are we going?
Which in terms of this empowerment issue we're talking about? Yes,
yeah,
of course.
yeah.
To clarify.
Hello, can I share something?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think when you look at the global policy in the past, it was worse off. But right now, it is improving because there are several mechanisms which have been set up. For example, when you look at UN Women, it is trying to design policies that are trying maybe to empower women. And also when you look at the domain of males, yeah, there are several actions that are being taken. But I think the future looks bleak a little bit based on what the shocks we're experiencing right now in the world. For example, when you look at COVID-19, it has reversed most of the actions that have been taken to empower, for example, society. For example, recently I was reading some article on the Gender Empowerment Index of India. It shows that before COVID-19, labor participation of women had increased by about 20%. But the recent report, which was published, showed that India's level of women's participation has gone down. Why? Because COVID-19 increased or revived the barriers that were encouraging women to enter into business, for example, in fisheries, for example, in tourism. So as a result, it means that if the world in the future is continuously going to experience shocks like that, it will reverse all the actions that we've been taking. So my conclusion is the future is a double-sided tragedy where if, for example, all these shocks are minimized, maybe the level of empowerment will increase. But if the inequalities are increasing, diseases, etc., it will be like the same process, same cycle of disempowerment. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes. Anthony?
Yes. I want to say that in terms of empowerment, I will say we're witnessing some progress, because just talking about it, a lot of persons now are aware of the need for them to come out and speak up. Like if you see here in Nigeria last week, in my country here, most women went to the Senate and they were demanding for their rights. That means people are becoming aware of what is meant for them. They are now, people are becoming more enlightened. People are becoming more aware of what they should stand up and demand for in terms of their rights. So even if we're not making so much progress, I want to believe that for just people being aware, mostly women now, for them being aware that they need to stand up and demand for their rights and ask for what is rightfully theirs. So we're making progress. So I want to believe that where we were, we're better off now compared to where we are coming from. At least we are making some progress, even if the progress may not be much. So that's the area I wanted to contribute.
Thank you very much for sharing that, what's happening in Nigeria, definitely. Yeah.
And Anthony, I mean, I could just feel that energy coming out. Like, it feels so amazing.
Thank you.
And this is also, something when we were chatting, preparing for this workshop, one question that came when we were preparing is this workshop just going to have women and not men in them? And that's for so many of you who are here, beautiful hearted, courageous men are also here, all of you, and you're willing to look at what has happened in the past and just standing there for the other half of humanity to rise. So it's gorgeous to see that, and thank you for bringing that from Nigeria and from wherever else all of us are right now. But certainly that aspect of also integrating the other half of humanity, what men have been through, because I think for the longest, one of the things has been that men have been out, sent into the wars. We've always had to, going back to, I think, Deepthy's quote that she started with, the pain that is not transformed gets transmitted. So in all of these years of a man having to go fight wars and suppressing that feminine, the emotional aspect, having to be strong, having to have that shield and then armor all the time. And how has that then transmitted into the world? Not being able to allow us overall, especially embodied by men mostly, as that macho-ness which is expected.
Pooja, usually we have these breakout rooms and sessions. I was just telling Juice the other day, like, yeah, since we can't have breakout within breakout, it becomes a challenge, just putting in chat. And when you read these beautiful messages, you really want to hear their voice and see it happen.
I don't want to say too much, but I mean, from my point of view, also my personal experience, and actually we should be all these men talking here. I mean, women empowerment, if this is what our main topic is also basically man empowerment in terms of being able to bring out that feminine part. And what I see is that in my generation, in this part of the world, I see increasingly engaged fathers. That is, fathers that are present at home, even they have to have top jobs or whatever, they take care of the kids as well, and household chores are shared. So this is a trend which I really see amongst many people of my generation. And if I compare that to the generation of my parents, was a different world. So we're really heading in the right direction, and it is very cultural.
How about the women on this call, whoever they, how are you experiencing that? In our everyday lives, just the example that Dr. Juice just mentioned, how are you seeing it? How are you experiencing it? That shift that is occurring for a lot of men right now?
I think that there's definitely a change from men, but like when we speak about relational empowerment, and it was mentioned also yesterday by Sapna Desai, there is also actually a critical stake which is in between women also, because some women are supportive, but some women are also very disempowering other women. Yes. So definitely, there's a big change happening in men and how they're supporting women, because there's also all the love, the care that is inherent in the position of for couples, so they can also relate to women as wife, sister, daughter, and all these things. And I think this is also where the change is coming. But I feel also that there's a lot also going on in terms of women to women relationship, and how we are supporting each other, and how we are really helping each other to move forward. And I believe that sometimes, in women's empowerment topic, this like a bit of attention. Let me say, this will require a bit more of discussion, because I mean, from what I see from my small experience in India, or also my experience in my life, there's quite a lot of challenges in there in this relationship, you know, and that needs also to be looked into when we speak about empowerment. And so the compassion, the kindness, and the support definitely, you know, is required from men, but also from women. You know, it should come from both sides, and from our side also. You know, we can't expect to receive something if we're not able to give it. But yeah, thank you for listening.
That was so beautiful, Sandrine. It took me back to my childhood. Like, I'm remembering what my mom used to say. Okay, you have to talk like this, you have to walk like this, you can't sit like this. So all those, I mean, I think the men in the household also look up to women sometimes as to what are those things that has to be put in place at homes individually. You know, so probably when it comes to women, there's a lot of, we could help each other first. I feel like even before we look at so many other dimensions.
We have a couple of messages also here. I think Gauri, she said her internet is bad. And she's written, empowering women also means empowering men, but in the right way. Both need to find the inner balance.
Pooja, should we get into the theory part now? A little bit of, because the last 2 years we have been working with Theory U. We've been part of the U Lab process, so that is something we have tried to bring into our classrooms as well. I would invite Jim. Jim, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Just
yeah, I can't see anybody, so I'm with.
yeah, just before we get into Theory U, just a couple of comments. Yeah, I love that phrasing relational empowerment and looking at women to women and men to men and men and women together, and how yeah, the fathers are changing and the role of men and stuff. And it was interesting that bringing in Richard Rohr to begin with, of the pain we don't transform, we transmit. And I belong to a men's international group called Illumin, which Richard Rohr actually founded. And so it's looking at how do men be a positive force of change in the world. And as we were getting at, you know, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going, another one of Richard Rohr's sayings is, we're always on this 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. So there's always kind of a retrenchment that we go through, and a reaction to progress and stuff. But if you look at the trajectory over time, you know, as we're getting into, you know, that iceberg model of what are the trends, hopefully that trend is increasing and we're making progress in this area. And so Theory U is a way of, you know, Otto Scharmer and others have come up with this process of, okay, how do we make positive social change in the world? And how do we maybe facilitate this 3 steps forward and watch out for those 2 steps back? And what I've always liked about it, it is a what you know, Richard Rohr would call a journey of descent. We oftentimes have to descend into this place of presencing, and we do it through, you know, observing, suspending. You know, these are dialogic processes, and sensing. We've already talked about, you know, when something comes up, sensing into what we're feeling, what we're sensing in the body. And this requires some letting go. And we get to this place of, presencing, who is myself? What is my work? And in this place of presencing, we're looking to build our capacity to open our mind, to open our hearts, and to open our will. And then only once we've made that journey can we start to co-create things with our partners and our community that we're engaged in, and we start to here actually do kind of rapid prototyping where we're looking to embody what we want to create in the world, and we do it in such a fashion that we want to fail quickly so that we can learn and improve quickly. And so there's this natural honoring of we do make mistakes, we do have failures, and again, it's difficult to do justice in a single slide. There are, books on this, and it's really a process of immersion to get into this space of, and again, it's a very empowering space where there is a co-creation, there's a co-sensing into what is the system that we're involved in, and there's this recognition that we have to do this work of personal presencing, of opening our minds, our hearts, and our will to take action, and that for right now we can just talk about it's just a process of co-creation. And this is one of the guiding thoughts, is that the success of any intervention that we make will lie in the interior condition of the intervener. And so that means, we have to do that personal work of opening the mind, opening the heart, and opening our will to, again, I look at this will piece as, the power piece. And are we doing power over or power with? And this notion of empowerment being power with, it's this mutuality that we'll talk to in a minute in partnership. So let's go to the next slide. And so we want to bring in, don't know if folks are familiar with these women who have articulated this notion of there is a dominator system and a partnership system. And for me, what sums it up is, Bell Hooks, that's her pen name, of Gloria Jean Watkins, who just passed away in December, one of the great feminist authors of all times. One of her sayings is, we must first replace the dominator model with a partnership model that sees interbeing and interdependency as the organic relationship of all living beings. And Riane Eisler began talking about this difference between a dominator model and a partnership model, probably back in the 1970s or earlier. And this is kind of a foundation. One of the important things of a dialogue is the ability to name things. And I see this notion of naming the difference between a dominator model and a partnership model as being very powerful. And these are kind of the four cornerstones. And there's of how we go about shifting from domination to partnership. And you know, it's family, childhood relations, gender relations, economic relations, and the narrative and the language. We, you know, want to get to some time for diving in a little bit to the dialogue. So this is, again, there's volumes written by these women and others on this movement from domination to partnership. And here's just, you know, very quick slide on some differences. You know, it's, again, I heard, you know, when we talked about that first slide, there was talk of fear and stuff. And, you know, that's defining characteristics of a dominator system. And, you know, partnership system is looking at, again, opening the mind, the heart, and the will, and looking at this notion of relational empowerment, I would say. So, again, there's a lot here. We're just touching the surface. We just want to make you aware of it. And there are a lot of places to go and look to
Jim,
build on that.
We could also, like, if anybody is interested in the slides, we could share with them along with some readings. Just wanted to mention that.
No, absolutely. Thank you. We received your 3 readings, and which we will share with the audience. I mean, just as a reminder, sorry, that's my role as a moderator. We have a good 15 minutes left. So please keep that in mind.
We are on time, I think.
So you're going to take this, Pooja, or?
Sure, I can take that. All right. Jiddu Krishnamurti's work is also one of very foundational to any and all of this. And one of his quotes that we often use in different workshops and work is this one, going around on the same theme of fear, domination, partnership. This one's talking about violence is not merely killing another. It is violence when we use a sharp word, when we make a gesture to brush away a person, when we obey something because there is fear. So violence isn't merely organized butchery in the name of God, in the name of society or country. Violence is much more subtle, much deeper, and we are inquiring into the very depths of violence.
It's just something we had shared with the students, and they kind of did the mapping. So we're not going into it, but it was an interesting exercise. Some of us were facilitating this theme, in fact, a dialogue with them. And they brought in a lot of stuff that we had kind of discussed out here. The last 7 minutes of this is Vinny, are you there? You want to?
Yeah. So good evening. Thank you, Deepthy. So I think we have come to the end of the session, and of course it was quite content heavy with a lot of very valuable, insightful discussions that came forward. So this is exactly the contrast of what we showed you before. You are seeing something very different now. So have a look at the pictures here.
Okay.
Yeah, again, you can, what do you see? What do you sense? What do you feel? So quickly, some of you can write in the chat if you want to express yourself, because this is a very different image that is shown to you, which has different emotions than the one that was shown before. Yes, good friendship, yeah, good mutual support, partnership, yes, sharing, respect, excellent. Happiness, connection, good. Harmony, encouragement. Yeah, equality, very good. Sincerity, feel happy and smiling. So we really wanted to leave you with a smile, you know. We didn't want to leave you with any dark thoughts. Yeah, I see, I sense and feel human potential, empowerment, collaboration. Yeah, thank goodness. Equality, hope, respect, education. A lot of positivity in these comments.
Pooja, do you want to
Yeah, the last two
end
slides,
with a
Pooja can take. Yeah.
question and answers, or do you want
We,
some
yeah,
time for question?
kind of short of time, so let's put those questions and just let everyone just chat or speak through them. We'll take a few people who want to just speak through this, if anyone. What do we mean by systems need change? We kind of touched upon how we all co-create any system, the sense of agency that so many of you beautifully brought out. And what are the different ways in which we participate in a system? So if a few of you would like to just come forward and speak through it, if you feel like.
Hello, let me say something. Hello?
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, like for the first question, according to the little knowledge I have, what we mean by systems need to change basically means trying to create balancing feedback in a system that is neither creating worse off scenarios. For example, let me give an example of the ocean. So if we want to create like systems change in the ocean, for example, there might be a fishery community where there is increased overfishing, and the preferred scenario could be limited or efficient utilization of that fishery. So a system change in this case will mean trying to make those people continue fishing to get some livelihood, but in a sustainable manner. So a system change means balancing the positives of a given system such that the negative aspects don't accelerate. And for the second question, what are the different ways in which we can participate in a system? I think one of the ways we can participate in a system is to create pathways of sustainability. For example, we can do research, we can map a system to show, for example, what are the negative loops and what are the positive loops. So from that, we can balance and show the preferred scenario, which changes the business as usual bad scenario. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
And thank you to Martha and Gauri and Dr. Juice as well. Lovely inputs on there. Systems need change, the planet is not working, dire time for many species. Is systems change inside of us? Yeah.
Yeah. So we've come to the close of this. So I'll keep this and probably would want each one of you just to put in one word out there, what's right now that's coming out of your hearts. We have gone through a process, but constraints of time and technology, we are not able to see into each other's eyes and be there for each other to create that kind of space. But Sandrine has raised a hand. Yes, Sandrine?
Yeah, I would like just to, on a closing note, just to really thank you for creating this space where, you know, people could actually bring in their own experience, reflect about the empowerment, and also see what other people believe about that. It reminds me a lot about, you know, this awareness raising circle that were done by women, you know, at the beginning of the feminist movement. I think they were called the red circles. And there is still a lot of circle going on between women to discuss this kind of you know, what is specific to empowerment, the feeling, and what is going on around that. So I wanted to say I really appreciate your efforts and the way you bring it in. And it really reminds me of this awareness raising circle. And in this way, you're very faithful to the tradition of letting knowledge emerge from sharing our own experience and reflecting from what other people share also, because you give the space and the time to really look into ourselves. So thank you so much for this introspection on empowerment. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there is any questions that you would want us to answer or something like that, you could just put it out there. The last 2-3 minutes of it, we'll try to.
Let me use my privilege as a moderator to do two things. One is indeed, as Sandrine, you and I just shared with us, what I really liked about this is that you both sort of allowed us to have a look into your kitchen, how you cook in terms of your methodology, but then weaving in the substance as you go. And for us, I mean, participants, this was a new experience for me in this setup. You know, it shows us how we can think about things in a structured way, but also in a slightly different way, maybe inside out way, which we like to sort of share, I think, in the audience that we are here at the Amrita conference. So that is really great. But my question would be, can you just share maybe some of your success stories? I mean, an example where this approach, a setting where you thought this worked really well.
Pooja, you want to take it, Jim?
I was gonna ask you to say that, because at school and in different places, I think you've been applying it a lot more.
But just an illustration, I mean, I'm not testing you. It's just share some practical experience.
Yeah, just the only thing is that you let us to speak. I mean, we talk for hours together, and that's been our experience, like the 5 of us. I mean, there's one more member who's not here, but the last 2 years we have been trying to create the space at ITM itself, and it's been an awesome journey. In fact, many of us, I mean, we're taking baby steps into this, the process of forming and dialogue itself. So just to be there, to listen, to suspend our thoughts, and just go with the flow. It's been an enriching experience. We have had facilitators cohorts where we had faculty joining us, some of the alumni joining us. So we have had 2 such cohorts. We have had the dialogue with industry members, and we are continuing to hold the space with the students. In fact, every week there are some of us who have these sessions. It's an ongoing thing, and we to use Otto Schama and Joseph Jaworski's words, we call them or level 4 leaders who are able to, bring in that self-awareness and then go with what is called as emergent leadership. So trying to build it into that has been a beautiful experience. And for that, the team meets once every week, and it's kind of, we dance in that space. I mean, I can't find any other word there. It's I don't know, we love it.
Yep. And for all of us, I think for me personally, as I have learned to be in these spaces, because it every time it's a new thing, as facilitators, a lot of times you can get in your head, which sort of happened to me before I was logging into the session. But then you get into the space and you lose yourself, and that is the most enriching aspect as far as I'm concerned in this whole process. So that inside out aspect of it is that definitely happens and comes about.
Maybe try to be quick about this, but so in the 1990s, again, I'm working for the U.S. Forest Service, and we're having problems with firefighter fatalities, and I work in the world of health and safety, and we're looking to how can we make the workplace much more safe, and we work with Otto Scharmer and other folks at MIT to bring in this technology. And it felt almost like an uphill battle. Some of senior leaders were receptive and very supportive. Others were, what's this thing about, sitting in the circle and having a conversation? How's that going to help? And so, we were, I think, very effective. But then it was nice to come into this space. Deepthy and Pooja and I met in an online class that is on Theory U and stuff, and then to come in and work with what they're doing at ITM in a very, very supportive environment that, folks, immediately see the value of dialogue and so forth. And, there are, you almost have to reframe the word mistake. There are missteps, and only if you don't learn something from it is it a problem. And you put yourself out there, you make mistakes, and then you learn and you adjust and you adapt, and that's been the process, and it's very enriching.
Right. Thank you very much. I think we're pretty sharp on time, 3 minutes before we go back into the main room. So thank you all very much again. This was very inspiring, very interesting. The 1.5 hours just went by like this. It's always a good sign. So thanks, and meet you in the main room in just 3 minutes. You will be automatically retransferred, or you just push the button, leave the room. See you in a minute.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Bye. Thank you so much.
See you later. Thank you so much.